Bottom line is trying to eat animal flesh is just a ghastly proposition. In summary, we do not like animal flesh in its unaltered native form. So, why do we seek to circumvent our disgust response? Why do we do this in the first place? In order to circumvent our disgust reflex, we find it necessary to extensively modify animal flesh by skinning, plucking, cutting, shaping, cooking, and flavoring it to mimic the look, taste, texture, and size of edible plants and plant parts. Humans found it necessary to do this to overcome our innate aversion and disgust response to animal flesh so that we could use animals for the calories that weren't available from plants in temperate areas during winter months. Why did humans develop a disgust response to animal flesh in the first place? Because for an herbivorous species in a primitive environment, eating flesh carries a significant risk of death from choking or gastrointestinal infection. In equatorial regions, plant foods are abundant year-round, and attempting to hunt is actually energetically wasteful because the energy content of wild plant foods and wild game are nearly equal, such that expending energy trying to hunt does not improve survival. Furthermore, hunting carries a risk of serious injury or premature death, which would significantly reduce the chances of successfully raising young and propagating one's genes. Wild plant foods are, in fact, much more nutritious than wild game because they have a higher content of vitamins, antioxidants, phytochemicals, and fiber. And they lack the pathogenic bacteria and viruses that animal tissue has. And lastly, a distaste for violence and killing is a necessary prerequisite for a social species whose survival was dependent upon cooperation, interdependence, and the sharing of food resources. Killing is so antithetical to our nature that in every society, all killing, whether animal or human, must be considered justifiable. Killing for the sake of killing is universally viewed as reprehensible in all human societies. And that's in direct contrast to carnivores who kill without any reservation or remorse whatsoever. Out of our inherited aversion to bloodletting and violence grows our sense of morality and ethics, which causes us to create laws and judicial systems. It also leads us to reject and ostracize selfish, violence-prone individuals and to promote the concept of the greater good through philanthropy, cooperation, caring, and sharing. And these are just some examples. So we need to learn to embrace what is our true and natural diet. While learning to get around our innate aversion to eating animal flesh may have conferred survival advantages in the past, as we migrated out of equatorial regions to temperate areas where plant foods weren't abundant year-round, clearly that is no longer the case. We now have very ready access to plant foods year-round. We have supermarkets, we can grow our food. There is no longer a problem with us obtaining very nutritious wide variety of plant foods throughout the year. Plant foods are abundant, readily available everywhere throughout the calendar year. Medical science has conclusively shown a plant-based diet is without question the healthiest diet humans can consume once we are weaned. It actually turns out it's also the best diet for our planet. That begs the question, how green is your diet? Animal-based agriculture is one of the major contributors to the massive increases in greenhouse gases that we see, such as carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, and methane, that are responsible for accelerating global warming and causing climate change. After energy production, raising animals for consumption is the number one cause of global warming and climate change. It's responsible for at least 18% of greenhouse gas emissions, and that is more than all of the greenhouse gases produced by all of the cars, trucks, trains, and planes combined. And the asterisk points out that cattle emits huge amounts of methane that actually has a warming effect that is 23 times greater than carbon dioxide. They also emit nitrous oxide that has a warming effect that is 296 times greater than carbon dioxide. And at more than 7 billion, I think now it's up to 7.5 billion individuals, human beings display the classic population dynamics of a typical social herbivore mammalian species. And what that means is that all large-bodied social herbivore species or social mammals are herbivores because the planet simply can't produce enough animal protein to support large-bodied animals in those numbers. There's just not enough land area to do it. Switching to vegetarian or preferably a vegan diet will reduce your carbon footprint by more than 1.5 tons of carbon dioxide a year. And that is more than if you change to a hybrid car, which is why I tell people, if you drive a Prius or some other hybrid car and still eat meat, you clearly need a lot more fiber in your diet. 70% of the corn grown in the US each year is used for animal feed, and that requires 17 times more land, 14 times more water, and 10 times more energy than if people ate the plant foods directly. Books such as Beyond Beef, The Empty Ocean, and Water Follies document the destructive impact our animal food addiction has on our planet. Movies such as Cowspiracy and Seaspiracy also highlight the destruction we are causing upon the environment through the consumption of animal foods. And Beyond Beef, Jeremy Rifkin highlights the true cost of and problems associated with beef production, including the famine, waste, and environmental destruction resulting from overgrazing cattle and raising rainforests to raise beef for export. Since 1970, more than 25% of Central American rainforests have been cleared for pasture land for cattle. He also discusses the toxic effects of the billions of tons of animal waste, more than 11,000 tons produced per second, and the misuse of water resources. More than 50% of annual U.S. water use is being used for raising livestock, and the massive amounts of fossil fuels that are used as both fuel and petroleum-based fertilizer that is used to grow grain that is then turned around and used for animal feed. And fossil fuel-based farming contributes to global warming by using non-renewable and poorly recycled forms of carbon, again, both as fuel and as fertilizer. While Rifkin's book only deals with beef, the issues that he discussed are also germane to poultry and pork production as well. And runoff from hog farms has caused massive fish kills and disease due to the Listeria bacteria. And it also causes horrific health problems for individuals who are unfortunate enough to live in areas where these hog farms are located. In the movie called They're Trying to Kill Us, the directors John Lewis and Keegan Kuhn point out the elevated rates of death and disease amongst the poor Black individuals who are unfortunate enough to be located near these tremendous hog manure lagoons. They have all kinds of disease that comes from the fact that this manure gets in the air, it gets in the soil, gets in the groundwater, and these people are being just abused and mistreated by these companies. These animal food addictions are not benign, and they're killing not only the environment and other animals, but human beings as well. And water follies, Robert Glennon explores the negative impact our overuse of groundwater for irrigation and agribusiness has on the environment, including ground salinization, and how our misuse of our water resources presents a crisis of widespread water scarcity. And many people predict that future wars will be fought over the scarcity of fresh water. Researchers also predict that as global warming progresses, sea levels will rise, and widespread drought will become common, potentially inciting wars and other international conflicts over the declining sources of fresh water and arable land. The Empty Ocean documents how human predation has caused the collapse of many major fish stocks, threatens others. Many species have declined by more than 90%. Richard Ellis argues human activities are driving many marine species towards extinction. Many animals are killed and discarded as unwanted bycatch, such as this sea turtle, and we are destroying the architecture of the oceans by scouring reefs through reckless, indiscriminate bottom trawling for shrimp. This is a reef before bottom trawling, and then this is what it looks like afterwards. A 2006 census study projects that all commercially fished species will collapse by 2050 if current fishing trends continue. And again, the movie Seaspiracy did a devastating expose of commercial fishing and its impact on our oceans. And then there's the overt versus covert environmental damage. The preceding instances of how our animal food-based diets negatively affect the environment were examples of just overt human impact, but then there are less direct but equally harmful covert instances of the negative impact our dietary choices have on the environment. An example is the human-driven depletion of wild salmon populations in the Pacific Northwest. Salmon are the currency of biological richness, and that statement comes from a PBS Nature special. Turns out that alpine rivers, springs, and streams are very clear and clean, but that also means that they are naturally nutrient poor. The annual and often year-long migration of various species of ocean-matured salmon upstream to their birth rivers and tributaries actually represents a massive and necessary transfer of nutrients from the oceans back to those river watershed ecosystems. Studies showed that 80% of the nitrogen found in the ecosystems of the Pacific Northwest actually came from the oceans. Salmon deliver nutrients directly to the rivers and streams, and then when they die and decay in situ after spawning, but they also enrich the entire ecosystem by becoming food for animals and insects, and then fertilizing the plant life through droppings that are deposited by the organisms that have fed on them, as well as by the bodies of those animals that eat them after they die. While the primary cause of the decline in salmon populations is habitat destruction, again, from human activities and the damming of river systems, the unnecessary added pressure of commercial fishing, which accounts for more than 100,000 tons per year of salmon caught and carried away by humans, constitutes a potentially unsustainable, deleterious, discretionary burden of questionable validity. You know, you're destroying the environment for a salmon croquette. By contributing to the depletion of Pacific salmon runs, we are damaging entire ecosystems in unknown ways because we are removing a major source of vital nutrients from these ecosystems. Given that these ecosystems developed over millennia dependent on the annual infusion of marine nutrients and organic material into the environment by returning Pacific salmon, it is a safe inference that the massive and long-term removal of these nutrients cannot help but have baleful and far-reaching effects on both the fauna and flora of these regions. When we catch and consume large amounts of Pacific salmon, we are in effect interrupting nutrients nature had targeted to the North Western ecosystems and tying them up in our bodies. We then eventually lock those nutrients away in the sediment of sewage treatment plants, the detritus of landfill and septic tanks, and in cemeteries that are far removed from their intended destinations. What the ultimate impact and effects of this wholesale transfer of nutrients out of and away from these ecosystems will be is as yet unclear and may not be fully known for generations. At some point in our future, assuming there is one, when magnificent species like bluefin tuna and swordfish no longer exist, children will ask what became of these ancient, ineffable, and irreplaceable creatures. And I wonder, what will we tell them? What are we going to say? That we destroyed them for something as ephemeral, crass, and unimportant as the way they tasted? Because if that's all we will be able to say, that will truly be a tragic and sad legacy. I suggest we listen to our inner selves and return to the diet that we were meant to eat, a plant-based diet. So in closing, our ability as humans to reprogram ourselves is both our greatest strength and our greatest weakness. The plasticity and adaptability of human cultures have allowed us to colonize and exploit every corner of the globe, but they've also caused us to become the most rapacious, cruel, and environmentally destructive organism the world has ever known. Where moving beyond our natural diet once conferred survival advantages on peripatetic adventurers, it now imperils our health and wreaks havoc on the earth and its ecology. We have been spectacularly successful as a species, but that very success makes it more important than ever that we learn to live within our true ecological niche as herbivores. We must do this not only for our own health and collective well-being, but for the benefit of the planet and its other inhabitants as well. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for your time and attention, and I hope that this has been a beneficial and enlightening lecture for you all. Thank you for your time and attention.
All right, thank you, Dr. Mills. Oh, where'd you go?
I'm here, trying to stop share. Oh, well, I guess I do have one last slide. This is from the book of Isaiah. It says, "The time will come where the wolf shall dwell with the lamb, the leopard shall lie down with the young goat, the calf and the young lion and the fatling together. The cow and the bear shall graze, their young ones shall lie down together, and the lion shall eat straw like the ox. They shall not hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountain, for the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord." That's Isaiah 11, verses 6, 7, and 9. Let's pray that that day will come soon.